Right now, we're in Baptist Town. I mean, Baptist Town is like the safe haven for the blues singer like Robert Johnson, Honey Boy Edward, Guitar Slim. All those guys would live in this area. They would live in this area so they wouldn't go to the cotton field and go to work. Because they lived up across the river over there, the boss man would make sure they'd be at work. But they lived over here and they could hide out in the houses and wouldn't go to work. And that's what guys like Robert Johnson, Honey Boy Edward, those guys would do, because they could make more money playing music on the corner than they could picking up chopping cotton.
Every Sunday I would go to church with my mama. She said, if you want to go to church and you want to play music in the church, you going to play music in the church. You want to go the other way, that's your business. I said, yes, ma'am, I'm going the other way. That's what I'm
I'm among solid church-going folks who pay taxes to God and have barbecues after service. But the Deep South is also hoodoo country, where two heads lay tricks, sprinkle goofer dust, and work mojos. And this is stuff people don't talk about openly here unless they're telling tales about the one-eyed man deep in the woods making gree-gree bags or singing about it in songs by Robert Johnson. To them, asking the kind of questions I ask, I'm just talking about the devil.
Never over. Never over. Forever and forever and forever. It's your home simply because you rejected Jesus Christ. What's your choice? Heaven or hell? Who will you serve? Lord Jesus or Lord Satan? Where is your family going to have its final reunion? Around the throne of God or in the corridors of the lost? Simply because you rejected the love of the only begotten Son of God. I want you to choose now and recognize that your eternal soul hangs in the balance.
Designed for the devil and his angels. God's designed heaven for you. God has designed a destiny for you. But if you choose not to live for him and submit to him, you will reap the consequences of joining the devil's team.
The pandemon. The pandemon. You thinking it's some messed up stuff. The pandemon is the Sabbatic goat, the Sabbath. The god Pan comes from the original god of Africa, Sut, or Sut-Nessi, which means the black one. Anytime you see hieroglyphic icons and symbols in the ancient world, it's explaining energy. When you see energy like this, that looks the most hideous, it's explaining the most powerful energy.
Multiple personalities that identify specific traits that every person inherits.
Most people, when they hear the term myth, and I know this was certainly true of me years ago as I was growing up, if I heard the term myth, I would think of it being a story that's not true. But there's a much, much deeper understanding that you have to have of the term myth if you're gonna understand African spirituality.
Myth becomes a way of speaking to that. And we create all these elegant, wonderful myths that people sometimes take literally.
Everybody has a story of how things became what it is. And it's all considered to be mythology because it is based on a belief.
The Akan myth of coming down on a golden chain. Well, that chain is not really what's there. It is seeing the precious element linked together that is our Genesis. See, so there's a deeper meaning here.
So every civilization of note is rooted in mythology.
It may speak of a hero that once lived. It may speak of an event that occurred. And so that out of this metaphor, out of this story, comes a ceremony that reenacts it, and that's the ritual.
And then we create rituals, and rituals are really ways to perform that reinforces the logic and the knowledge of the myth.
So, myth and rituals are two of the most essential parts of any religion. If you say you have a religion, you can guarantee you have myth, you have ritual, and you have belief.
The story then goes into a ceremony that is constantly going to remind people of what occurred, so that we never lose sight of the past. Because when you know the past, you can interpret the present. And when you interpret the present, you can predict the future.
Memory and imagination being these two pillars. Well, the memory grounds us in our origin, and the imagination takes us into a future. And they both go hand in hand.
Whenever I listen to Robert Johnson's music, I think he's probably the prime example of how America was back in those times.
A woman I love took for my best friend.
Oh, don't you hear that wind howl? I mean, that can bring tears to your eyes. You could see, I mean, it's so visual. The music is very visual.
The subject matter and the way they were treated, let alone the guitar playing, which is almost like Bach. And the voice is so eerie and compelling.
You better come on in my kitchen to be raining outdoors.
What was he like? The man whose music has inspired such universal praise. Where did he come from? Who taught him to play? And of all the bluesmen to come out of the Mississippi Delta, what made Robert Johnson a legend? More than 50 years after his death, his music continues to attract followers the world over. But the man himself is still a mystery. The only real history we have is recorded in his music.
I think he was the synthesis of all of a whole era.
It's just been carried on and on and on through Muddy Waters, Elmore James, on through the rock bands.
If you're really interested in where these guys got their lessons from, I mean, you have to keep going back, and you go back and you go back.
Back to the Delta. Back to a place and time where the blues began.
Oh, Lord, I woke up this morning, man, I was feeling bad. Whoa, babe, I was feeling bad. Well, I was thinking about the good time, Lord, I once have had. Lord, 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 Lord. I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes.
It's an amazing thing for what happened to America with the black population, the slaves being brought over, and then, you know, having to sing for a form of release, to sing for a form of release from being oppressed, and all of a sudden this music comes about. I mean, it comes out of the fields, it comes out of the people singing in church.
Robert Johnson and what is considered country blues, and really I think that's just a small portion of all indigenous American music, jazz, American black gospel, white gospel. It all has its roots in two primary cultures that the world has produced, the European culture and the African culture, and they came together on this continent.
You would hear music coming from here. Somebody would say, "You hear that singing? You hear that singing?" You would hear sound coming from this graveyard.
Legend has it Robert Johnson went down to the crossroads and gave the devil his guitar and a fried chicken sandwich.
Robert Leroy Johnson, born May 8, 1911, near Hazelhurst, Mississippi, was the grandson of slaves. His father, a man he never really knew, was Noah Johnson, an itinerant farmhand. His mother, Julia Ann Majors, was married to a successful farmer and carpenter named Charles Dodds. But Charlie got into a fight with a white landowner. Seems they both tried to romance the same young black woman and fled to Memphis with a lynch mob on his heels, leaving Julia and their 9 children behind. After Robert was born, the family began working its way from one migrant labor camp to another across the Delta.
My poor father died and left me, and my mother done the best that she could. Every man loves that game you call love, but it don't mean no man no good.
We used to work on the farm together, and I think the boss man told me to leave once because everybody's in the field chopping cotton, and he ran outside the house, had some hay bale water tied around his mouth with his harp. He just was a young man, he just professed to be a musician, but the man wanted me to chop some cotton.
He got him 3 nails and 3 strands of wire and nailed up on the east side of his house. And put him a bottle in there for to keep the string from laying flat to tighten them like you would tune in. And that's what he started with. And that's just how he started playing music, on those balls and 3 strands of wire.
He wasn't no farm man. We'd be chopping, picking cotton or whatever, and he'd be around outside in the house in the shade picking that guitar. He didn't like no farm work, no.
Said that he sold himself to the devil, went to the crossroads and all that, but I couldn't exactly, true that because the people, you don't know what people doing, and I don't know how to believe that he sold himself to the devil. But he said he done that, went to the crossroads.
No, he never told me that lie. If he would have, I'd have called him a liar right to his face. Because I know it's a lie. You have no control over your soul. You don't know what you're going to do 10 minutes from now. You think you do. But you don't know what you're going to do 10 minutes from now. You might be stiff dead 10 minutes from now. You don't know. So how are you going to do anything with your soul? You are a soul.
Well, they say he sold himself to the devil, and that's what they say.
That word devil, you'd be surprised how effective it is.
Robert wasn't just good, he was great. People couldn't believe it. And that's when it started. All the talk about him making a pact with the devil to play the guitar like that. That's part of the myth. Back then, the blues was a disreputable kind of business. And if you wanted to be a blues man, write songs, play guitar, you had to sell your soul. You go to the crossroads at midnight, or so the legend goes. A figure steps out of the shadow, the figure of a big black man. You don't dare look at his face. You just hand him your guitar. He tunes it. Gives it back. If you take it, the deal is done. From then on, you live and die a blues man on the devil's terms, with the devil's blessing.
Now that I'm standing at the crossroads, baby,